Welcome everyone. Today finds me in Springfield, Illinois, where we're going to look inside Abraham Lincoln's home.
The little house over there across the street is how the house looked when the Lincolns bought it in 1844. They were adding on to it again and again and again through the years because Mrs. Lincoln wanted a nice family home and something big enough to hold her growing family. Eventually they added the second story and this became a 10-room house. Well, of course, that's very comfortable for the time period. So, this is basically the nicest room in the entire house. It was meant for company. And so if you'd actually been visiting the Lincolns, you would have come in that door, come into this room, and you would have had a seat on one of these chairs. This is in fact the original furniture. There are 3 of these drawings. They were all made before the Lincolns packed up for Washington, and we've been able to recreate the rooms using them. And this was added to the original cottage. So the original back wall of the house is right here. And then they added this room and lengthened the kitchen at the same time. Later on, the upstairs was added. This became the back parlor. This is also the room where Lincoln met with the leadership of the Republican Party when they came down from Chicago to tell him that in fact he was their nominee to run for president of the United States. So that happened right here. So this is basically where his campaign started. So we are in the sitting room. This is where the Lincolns would relax. In fact, Mr. Lincoln would lay on the floor half the time. He'd be reading. This is also the room where he would have had his pets. And he was actually quite the animal lover. There was usually a dog, and there were usually a couple cats. In fact, Mary Lincoln would comment that cats were his hobby, and evidently he was always bringing home stray cats. The boys would have been in this room, quite often probably playing with the stereoscope on the table. That is an original thing that belonged to the Lincolns. The little table between the windows is Mrs. Lincoln's sewing table. Now Mary did sometimes have a hired girl to help out, but she was doing much of the work. And so it's not an exaggeration to really say this is Mrs. Lincoln's house. The mantle in front of you is the original, and if you look at it very closely, you might be able to pick out the nail holes in the shelf. See those little little dots in there? What do you think they were hanging over the fireplace?
Stockings.
Yeah, we think Christmas stockings.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll head upstairs. On the way up the steps, please use the railing. This is the original banister Abraham Lincoln used. So it's as near as you're going to get to shaking his hand. One artifact we let you touch. And at the top of the steps on the left-hand side, there's a guest room. Take a peek in there. They never came back during the war years. And during all that time, they actually had renters here. So they had sold a lot of their furniture to the neighbors, and the renters bought a lot of it too. And they definitely, one of the pieces we know they had was Lincoln's bed. And they went and moved to Chicago in 1868, and well, there was the Great Chicago Fire. And that's the end of about a dozen pieces of furniture that would have originally been here. The wallpaper in here is a copy of the original. It's the one place in the house where some of the original paper survived. The wardrobe in the corner was theirs. I mentioned the sale. The family that bought that piece was here in Springfield. They kept their receipt for years. We still have it. They paid $20 for that wardrobe. The dresser was also a piece that was here in the home. And the little desk in the corner is original. Lincoln would do a lot of his writing and his work up here in the bedroom. It was a nice, quiet place for him. And the desk, by the way, wound up with a neighbor who cut the legs shorter so he could use it. So Lincoln probably was a good foot or two taller. The mirror is his original mirror, and of course we have that position at his height. And he was clean shaven in those days. Now, they had separate bedrooms. This is what you did if you had a large family home. It's quite the status symbol. Mr. Lincoln's room, Mrs. Lincoln's room is right behind us. And Mrs. Lincoln's commode, her original toilet. Wow. It's for nighttime. I mean, of all the things to preserve from someone's life, we have that. It's definitely an artifact that folks are interested in, though. One of the stories that was passed down about the boys was that, of course, they got very involved and excited in their father's campaign, and supposedly were known to climb out the window, stand on the porch roof, and yell at people to go vote for him. Some of the marbles in the little wooden bowl there on the footstool are original. They date back to the boys, we think, again, because we found them when we did our archaeology about 30 years ago. Down on the left-hand side is the hired girls' room, and Mary Lincoln usually had a hired girl, and that's a young woman, be about 15 years old, who lived here in the house and was here to help out with the different chores. When you're ready, head downstairs and I'll show you the tiny kitchen.
Did he have a home bathroom?
So we're in Mrs. Lincoln's kitchen. The stove is, in fact, the stove she cooked on, and one thing we know is that Mrs. Lincoln was actually quite a good cook. The room itself is 12 feet by 15 feet. And this is roughly about the size of the cabin that Lincoln grew up in as a boy.
So here we're looking at Abe's backyard. Now the upper right window is that small bedroom we looked at. And that would be the kitchen. So when old Abe was in Springfield, he actually had it pretty good. This is a nice home. You can see behind me. I think that would be a great place to sit and relax on a nice late summer day, just like today. And let's check out the Lincoln bathroom. Everybody wants to stay in the Lincoln bedroom, but whoever really got a look at the Lincoln bathroom? This is the second presidential pot that I have seen. I also saw the Jefferson commode, the Jefferson privy at Monticello. It makes me wonder why there's three. I mean, you don't think three people use that at the same time, do you? So over here we have a look at the Lincoln home as it looked in 1865.
Well, you're from Berlin?
Really, really similar.
Like originally from
There you can see
the north, but nowadays
that outdoor porch. This piping or ventilation is still there. The two windows. This one doesn't have shutters. And when I look at the house, it does have shutters.
I enjoyed it.
Well, you're going all over the States?
All over? No, not that much. We'll see. We're staying with a friend.
You still see the wooden sidewalk?
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you.
There's the wooden stairs right there. You can still see those. The pump is actually not there. It's a different pump that we're seeing right now. And this pump looks a little different too. So this is the Lincoln home in 1860. Looks almost identical to what we're seeing today. So what did this tour of the Lincoln House cost me? Well, being that it is part of the national parks, nothing. Absolutely free. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the Abraham Lincoln home. As always, I appreciate when you comment, when you share and like the videos, and if you haven't already, especially when you subscribe. From Springfield, Illinois, I'm Mark with the Average Me channel.